All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I wish I could be there in person. I haven't been on a flight like many of you since early March. Um, I'm looking forward to the days when we can fly again. But if there's one silver lining to this pandemic, at least from what I've heard from beer distributors, is that we've really cut down on needless supplier meetings in your warehouses. That turns out you can still sell a lot of beer and not have to have these long-winded meetings. So, maybe some learnings that will come out of this COVID era is that, we can get a lot done through phone and internet instead of tying up times in conference rooms. So um, I had some slides, but they're not that great. So I just thought I'd just talk for a few minutes and then go right into Q&A, which is usually the best part. So why don't we start with the big news this morning? Yingling and Molson Coors combining in a joint venture in the 25 states that they're not in. They were, it's not a huge, I mean, it's a surprise, but it's not a huge surprise. We've been hearing for years that they've been trying to cut a deal. Why now? I think honestly, it's a matter of having known Dick Yingling for 20 years, like many of you do. He's a stubborn guy, and I don't think he likes giving up control. And but I think also, especially in the last couple of years, he's been giving more control over to his daughters and younger leadership, Wendy and Jennifer. And so I think the timing is probably right, especially as we come out of COVID, and hopefully next year we'll be out of it, if God willing, there's a vaccine. So, one of the interesting things about the JV is that in states that Yingling is already in, and plus New England, Yingling will still have complete control and ownership. And so, Ohio doesn't seem like anything's going to change there. I think that they don't have any plans to change wholesalership or anything like that. The interesting thing about it, I think, is, Forbes called me this morning for comment and asked, why do it this way? And I think the reason is, I think if Molson Coors had its way, it probably would have preferred to just buy Yingling out completely and have full control and full margin and full ownership. But I don't think Yingling is ready to sell. They're family owned. They have been for 100 and something years. And I think Yingling probably would have preferred more of a contract brewing arrangement like Pabst had. And that way they could have, had complete control over the marketing and full contract margin. And I don't think Miller Coors wanted to just replace Pabst with Yingling since they're losing Pabst. So I think they came to an agreement somewhere in the middle, kind of a hybrid, where each partner gets some kind of control. They're going to have a board equal 50-50. They share in the profits, they share in the upside. But I think what's important for Yingling is that they're going to have the full power of the Molson Coors sales department, and especially with chain sales. And so to have a strong national chain sales department that's top three out there, in the beer industry at least, I think is a pretty good asset for them to get on the shelf and stay on the shelf. So I think it's a win-win for both companies. It really sucks for AV wholesalers who aren't already in that 22 state footprint. I think a lot of those guys were already wooing Yingling, and I know here in Texas the AV guys have been really pushing for it, I think. But now, unless you're really screw it up, it's going to go to the Molson Coors system pretty much everywhere, and so they won't have this fighting. And the Forbes guy also asked me, he goes, why wouldn't they go with the largest brewer and do a partnership with AB? And I said, well, I mean, I think there's no love lost between Yuengling and AB. I think that train left the station when they started suing each other in Mississippi over AB trying to keep their wholesalers, keep Yuengling out of their wholesalers. So yeah, I think Molson Coors was the natural place for them to go. So, big news. I think it remains to be seen how much pent-up natural demand there is for Yuengling the further away you get from Pottsville. I think I know in neighboring adjacent states, like here in Texas, Yuengling does have some name recognition, but the further west you go, I mean, do people in California know what Yuengling is? So it'll be interesting to see whether when they open up a state, it immediately goes to 5% market share like it has in some states and then kind of drops back. But I think the further you go west, the less that pop, you get that Yuengling pop. So anyway, interesting news. And I knew something was up yesterday when Molson Coors called me and said, you might want to wake up tomorrow early, Harry. So, but luckily I had some Zoom calls anyway, so I was already going to be up. But I do appreciate when they give me that heads up because I do, like to get my beauty rest. So, the other things that has changed since last year, obviously, is the COVID-19. And I thought I'd talk about a little bit about how that's changed our industry. I think it could have been a lot worse. I mean, think about Mexico and how they shut down the entire industry overnight. That could have happened very easily here if it wasn't necessary. So we really dodged a bullet, and it's been really it's been tough, particularly for on-premise shutting down. And I think what we're going to see is what we're seeing, like if you read in today's issue, or yesterday's issue rather, that we're going to probably lose upwards of 20% of on-premise accounts permanently. We're definitely have lost the number of taps out there permanently. And this is, while it really sucks for these poor independent on-premise operators, the industry, I think, will come out of it stronger. And, it's like my dad used to say that God loves drunks, fools, and beer wholesalers. And so, while the on-premise really hurt wholesalers in one way, coming out of this, they'll be stronger because frankly, those smaller on-premise accounts were unprofitable to deliver to anyway, especially if they had a bunch of tap handles that, that you had to clean and maintain. So we're definitely, I think the days of opening bars with, 20, 30 tap handles are over. I think the taking out that complexity is going to make the industry smarter and more efficient. And then just the natural culling of SKUs that this has caused makes the industry more efficient. And it kind of, I hate to sound so Darwinistic, but it's, kind of culled out some weak links in there anyway, and really forced especially the chains, the off-premise chains, to take a hard look at their cold boxes and make some hard choices that we really need to stock this cold box with high velocity items, because that we can't waste any space. Every inch of cold box space is needed to prevent out of stocks. So yeah, I think the beer industry is coming out of this pretty darn well. Of course, I think the biggest surprise to me is that we've seen trading up accelerate during, with the high spike in unemployment. And I think some folks said, well, a lot of these people are getting government subsidies, the $600 and unemployment insurance, but that money is run out, and we're still seeing above premium and beyond accelerating. And this didn't happen in 2008. If a lot of you will remember, everybody traded down. The budget beer and cheaper beers really took off in 2008 and 2009 because of the financial situation. That didn't happen this time. And you might wonder what's different. Well, I think it's seltzer is the difference this time. We have a category that was on fire before this happened. It continues to grow. It continues to accelerate, which is amazing to me. And it's higher margin and higher price. So I think that's why we're continuing to see price and mix increase, and it's increasing certainly faster than wine and spirits. The other thing that I guess kind of surprises me is I would have thought, in fact, I think I predicted at the beginning of the pandemic when I still do them, but these YouTube videos talking about stuff like kind of like what we're doing now. I think I predicted that beer was going to be a big winner compared to wine and spirits during the pandemic, just because beer is sold through grocery stores more in more states, and it's the grocery stores where people were going. That's their go-to place to get their food. That really didn't happen. While we don't have complete data, so far the data show that spirits are up in the same percent as beer. I do think beer has taken some share of ethanol from spirits, but I also think that the entire pie of ethanol consumption has increased. So in other words, I'm seeing that per capita consumption has increased during the pandemic much more than it would have. Per capita consumption has been pretty steady for the last 20 years. It goes, just kind of dips up and down a little bit, but it's pretty straight line. Well, not this year. It's we don't have, like I said, we don't have full data yet. We'll probably get that in January to really see what happened. But from early indicators, it seems like indeed people are drinking. They are drinking more, even though they can't go out. They're just drinking more at home. And I think there's, I think there's more day drinking, and because you're working remotely from home, nobody's monitoring you. And then plus just the stress levels of homeschooling and being cocooned at home really taking its toll. So yeah, I think we're coming out of this smelling like a rose. I think it'll only get better from here. The hard part, obviously, I hear distributors complain like, how are we gonna cycle these numbers, in next March and April? And, if the suppliers are that stupid that they're going to want you to beat last year's numbers for those huge spikes, then maybe you don't want to be their distributor. I think we'd be happy just to be flat, probably going to be down next March and April and May, and then continue to grow the next year and maybe end up flat in 2021. So I don't have a crystal ball, but that seems reasonable to me. Another big surprise to me, guys, is that I thought that we would be back to flat by now, but we're not. I mean, the industry is still growing at a very healthy pace, not as much as earlier in the spring and summer, but still growing very healthily. And which leads me to believe that it is per capita consumption and not pantry loading. Because, if your pantry ain't loaded by now, when is it going to get loaded? One of the things I think that's contributing to this is that when people have more beer and seltzers in their fridge and pantry, they consume it more. It's already there. And, it's the old adage and the kind of the argument behind 30 packs and 36 packs. And it's like, do we really want to move people to these giant packages? Well, if they have more, they'll drink more, and then they'll go buy more. So yeah, I think it's surprising the level of growth that we continue to have this late in the summer and through Labor Day. The real question now is, I think we'll get much more clarity once all the nonsense of the election is over in November, and God willing, we could get a vaccine and kind of get back to some semblance of normal. But yeah, I think if you want to look at distributor productivity and distributor margin, to me, it seems like it's only going to improve because there will be a smaller account base to deal with. And, it's like I always say, it's not how much beer you sell, it's how much beer you sell per account per week. And that per account thing, that denominator is very important. And the smaller that gets, and even if the top numerator is the same, the more profit you make, right? And beer is heavy relative to its price. And I think that really dictates everything else economically about the beer industry, that the fact that it is heavy. What's the highest cost in beer? It's moving it, freight. And, which brings up another issue about the vast increase in e-commerce over the COVID era. We've seen a 500% increase on a very small base. Some people estimate as high as 10% of dollar alcohol sales are going through e-commerce channels like Drizzly and other delivery services like that. Will that stick and stay? I don't know. I don't really think so. I think some of it will, but I think some of it will move back to click and pick up, or even going to the grocery store and picking it up yourself. The reason I say that is a couple of reasons. One is it's kind of a pain because you have to be there when the beer is delivered, right? Somebody's got to sign for it that's over 21. So it's not like you can just leave the house and leave a note on the door, And number two, like I said, beer is heavy relative to its price. And so, I read an interesting article, I think in the Journal a few weeks ago, that said that there's certain products that Amazon and Walmarts of the world really don't like to sell online because they're losing money every time they sell an item. And one of those items is dog food. When you think about a 30-pound bag of dog food, that is very unprofitable to deliver. Why? Because it's heavy, and beer is also heavy, and the margins aren't there to make up the money. So I don't see retailers jumping over themselves trying to sell more beer online. Now, that's not the same with wine and spirits. Wine and spirits aren't as heavy relative to their price point, and so there are more margins there. There is profit to be made on that side of the aisle of ethanol, but I don't see it sticking as much for beer. So having said all that, one of the other things that I wanted to touch on that I've been thinking of is how the distribution landscape has changed over the last year or two. One of the biggest developments is how large Reyes has gotten on the West Coast, and I think they've, I might be wrong, but I think they have they have all of Molson Coors in California. Maybe there's one other distributor that's left. I can't remember, but that they've basically taken over all the Blue, Silver, and a lot of Constellation on the West Coast. What's interesting about that to me is that they did it in conjunction with the suppliers. So, usually it's usually a distributor, when there's consolidation, a distributor will go to their neighboring distributor and say, hey, I'd like to buy you. And the neighboring distributor says, bring your wallet. It's going to be expensive, and then they work out some deal. And then they notify the suppliers that, hey, we have a deal. Well, in this case, the tail's wagging the dog. And what I think is happening here is that Reyes is going to the suppliers and saying, hey, we want to buy this distributor. Can you help us apply a little pressure? And I call it shadow terminations. So it's not a real termination. It's just the threat of a termination that spurs a lot of these guys to say, well, shit, I might as well come to the table and strike a deal. Now, why would a supplier do that? Why would they do that for Reyes? Years ago, I remember Molson Coors, when it's called Miller Coors, really didn't like the Reyes. They were fighting with them all the time. What's the change in heart? Why is Constellation doing these things? Well, I think the key lies in, I want to go back to a theme that I've talked about during this whole call, is that what? Beer is heavy relative to its price. So through Reyes's other divisions, their McDonald's divisions, their Coca-Cola divisions, and their beer divisions, they can really move heavy beer around very cheaply. It's freight. That's the key. They can go to Molson Coors. They can go to Constellation. They can go to New Belgium. They can go to Boston Beer. And all of these suppliers have shadow terminated distributors in the West for Reyes. And they can go to all these suppliers and say, hey, we're going to save you money on freight and we'll split the difference and you're going to get more margin. So the supplier like New Belgium is going to make a higher margin selling to Reyes versus selling to somebody else, another distributor. So I think it doesn't get talked about that much. And I also think, Reyes makes, they make it, promises of investments and things of that nature that are pretty common these days. So, and they can afford to do so. So the reason I just bring this up is, in the Midwest and the Southeast, it's pretty insulated from that so far. Reyes is mainly East Coast, West Coast, and Chicago. But I think they are going to continue to move in, and they've made no secret of the fact that they want to expand, and we could very well have a mega distributor that works with suppliers, much like a Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits works with a Diageo and Bacardi to force a squeeze. And we saw that in Missouri with Diageo and Southern, and so it's very different. This kind of stuff has been going on in the wine and spirits world for 20 years, but it's very new. It's very new to the beer world. So if that's one watch out or something that I had to give you, that's something to consider, to stick together when I know you guys fight hand, tooth, and nail on the streets, and that's great. But I think it behooves everybody in the middle tier to stick together with your state association and making sure that you have the laws in place to protect your value, so that you can make the decision whether you want to leave the industry or not. And if you do, you get a damn good price. So, and listen, I don't have anything against the Reyes brothers. I love those guys. They're great guys. They're great operators. I'm just pointing out what I see in front of my face, and that I can't necessarily write about it too much or with too much specifics, because I don't have any proof and I don't want to get sued on that. But to me, they have tipped their hand to say that the reason that they're sharing freight with their suppliers, freight savings, and so they have said that on the record. So I think also the pandemic accelerated, I think, some of these deals in certainly in Northern California. Now, whether there's going to be anything to sell, the fires and earthquakes and everything out there, it sounds like a terrible place to live. But anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking. The other thing that I just wanted to point out is that I think sales, we could see continued increases in sales, because let's face it, we don't have any beer to sell, or seltzer, especially in slim cans. And the supply issues really took everybody by surprise. And I think AB had an advantage there because the beer industry in Mexico was shut down for so long. They own Modelo, and so they had plenty of cans they could ship up from Mexico. So they didn't have as much of the shortages that Molson Coors and Boston Beer, and especially Mike's, had. But somebody sent me a picture yesterday of a single case of Coors Light cans, like 12-pack cans in their warehouse, just sitting on a lonely pallet. It just looks so pathetic. And who would have thought that we would just have this huge shortage of canned beer? So the Ball Corporation is really working 24/7 to build out capacity for cans. And so, hell, we might see we might see some more growth through next year as supply comes back online. And because seltzers don't see, even with the supply issues, they're not slowing down. They're accelerating, and there are more entrants. It is getting a little messier, but White Claw and Truly still dominate the number 1 and 2 positions. They're losing a little bit of share within the seltzer category, but who cares when the category is growing 200%? So I don't see that. There's certainly no signs of it slowing down, which is surprised me. I mean, we haven't seen this since the 70s with light beer, and even that took a lot longer than the seltzer's growth is taking this time around. So it really is transformational. So what do we have to watch out on that front? The one thing that we need to address is that I've been talking to some spirits executives in the last couple of weeks. We're working on a story in our other publication, Wine and Spirits Daily, about spirits seltzers, branded seltzers coming out. So if you'll remember back in the mid 2000s, like 2005, all the spirits companies came out with basically seltzers, malt-based seltzers. So, we've been through this craze before. It was just called Smirnoff Ice instead of White Claw. So if you'll remember, we had Smirnoff Ice, we had Sky Blue, we had Captain Morgan Gold, we had Bacardi Silver, the all malt-based, all spirit-based. They went through beer distributors for the most part, and they didn't taste that great. So most of them were short-lived, with the exception of Smirnoff Ice. So they're gearing up to do this again, and they want to get in on the seltzer craze, and they want to get in a big way. But there's one difference, and it's a very crucial difference to all of us on this Zoom call, and that is that the price points for seltzers and beer have gotten so high, thanks to craft and imports, that now spirits companies can afford to make these products spirit-based and not malt-based. So even with the excise tax differential, which is much higher for spirit-based, it doesn't matter. They're still making a good margin on the product. And so they don't have to share profits with an Anheuser-Busch or a Miller Coors. Although some, like Fireball, Sazerac, have elected to partner with a brewer, Anheuser-Busch, and to leverage their distribution network. So here's my point. My point is these products will be spirit-based. That leaves it open. Will they still go through beer distributors, or will they just go through their regular wine and spirits houses like Southern Glazers and RNDC? Number two, what does that? How does that affect demand? And will it shine a light on the fact that White Claw and Truly, which are perceived by consumers as being a vodka soda, will that shine a light on it being just flavored beer? And could that leave put it colloquially, a bad taste in people's mouth? And number four, that these spirit branded seltzers already have brand equity, and everybody knows what Bacardi is, and so they don't have to spend a lot of money on marketing just to get brand recognition. So I think that'll be interesting. In some states like Texas, it's not a huge issue because you can't sell spirits-based products in any place but liquor package stores. So that they're not going to get the type of distribution that a White Claw can get in grocery and C stores. I don't know what the law is in Ohio. I don't recall. But that's just something to watch out for. They're in the spring of 2021, we're going to see a flood of the spirits companies getting into the category in a big way. So trying to think. Go ahead.
So the first question we have, hold on one second, we're getting feedback. All right, let's try it this way. Sorry about that, Harry. Thank you for everything so far. First question we had was,
Spirits exec was recently quoted as thanking the beer industry for the development and success of seltzers. The executive intimated that the success of the category will end up with more consumers being attracted to spirits. Do you agree? He's muted. Oh, hold on, Harry. I don't know why you're muted. Uh-oh.
He did it.
Oh,
There you go.
Sorry about that. I turned my mic
Okay.
off.
okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I had that same conversation with a spirits exec last week, and my argument was, hey, we're kicking you guys' butts because we're taking spirits occasions away from particularly vodka, because like I said, people view White Claw as a vodka soda. And so, joke's on you. We're laughing all the way to the bank. And his response was, not so fast. And his thinking was when people start to grow up and grow out of seltzers, they're not going back to beer, Pilsner beer. They're going to move up to the vodka soda, real vodka and real soda. And so he does have a good point there. And so we might be, we're training people to have a taste profile that is more attuned to a vodka soda than it is to a Pilsner beer. Now, I think we need, those of us who are older remember that we had this exact same panic back in 2005 and 6 when Smirnoff Ice came out. Oh my God, we're just training people to drink Smirnoff vodka. And, to an extent, maybe it did, but it wasn't the Armageddon that a lot of panicked people had. People are moving to spirits anyway. So, I think any volume that we can get in the meantime is just icing on the cake. And I do believe that it really is a great way to take that consumer that was probably going to drink a Tito's and soda, and it's just easier to buy a White Claw, right? You can take it more places. You can take it outside. It's, crushable, 5%, tasty, all the things, low cal, all the things that Tito's has enjoyed as the fastest growing beverage alcohol brand that we've ever had, at least in the last 10 years, and maybe cutting into that occasion.
Another question. Thoughts on Coke dipping a toe into the alcohol beverage world? Is that a significant development? Are they just starting something to get rid of it? What do you think plays out there? Well,
the traditional thinking is that they've never wanted to be in the alcohol beverage business, and they're very conservative, and that they view them as a different industry. And I think that's very old thinking. I'll give you one data point. They bought 8 subscriptions last week. Okay. They've never subscribed. And so they bought all 3 of our publications, 8 subscriptions to all 3. So that's a pretty big invest. I mean, it's not big for Coke, but it's, we don't get those kind of orders every day. So yeah, I think they're going to get into it. One of the head of their kind of high end division reached out to me, and we've been having a dialogue. And so, yeah, I think they do want to get into the space, and the Topo Chico is a easy way for them to test it and have learnings. Do we go through beer wholesalers? Do we go through our Coke bottlers? There's a lot of ups and downs to both strategies. One being that the Coke bottlers aren't licensed, and just getting them to get licensed, and their count bases don't match up completely the same. So yes, I see Coke looking to Reyes as their first partner to test with, because Reyes is both a Coke bottler and a beer distributor, and so they can learn from that. And that's kind of another lever that Reyes has to pull.
Just a reminder, everybody on the call, if you have questions, please feel free to text me, 614-332-2127. Harry, you talked earlier about the impact on some of the on-premise accounts and what the long-term impact will be. Obviously, a lot of those on-premise accounts also are craft brewers, craft distillers. What do you see as the future for those entities that are both making the product and retailing it?
Yeah, I mean, some of them have already shut their doors permanently, but some are just hanging on. A lot of them got the PPP loan, which has helped them out. And as on-premise opens up, they're slowly opening up. A lot of them also, even before this, had large outdoor patios just naturally. And so that allowed them to stay open at least partially. And they also were filling growlers before this. So they are better suited to survive this than just a straight up bar or tavern or restaurant even. So, yeah, I don't think we're definitely seeing some shakeout, but I think they'll come out of this stronger as well. And, they are, I tell you what, it kind of does piss off the traditional bar owners from what I'm hearing, from the bar clients that I have, the readers that I have. It's like, these guys have a special license and it's really not fair. But it is what it is.
All right. Well, I don't see any other questions unless Dave, Tim,
We gotta have one more question. Come on.
When will the Big Ten start playing football?
What's that?
When will the Big Ten start playing football?
Oh yeah.
I got one more. We can go all day with that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a big question.
We need to get some of those beer drinking opportunities back, to say the least.
Oh yeah. I'm just glad to see that at least we have some semblance of an NFL starting back again, and viewership is down, but that might just because of hockey and basketball are still playing in their playoffs. So the whole sports thing is just so bizarre and so weird, and but I think football especially lends itself to having crowdless stadiums for TV viewing, because you really don't see much of the crowd anyway during the game and the action's on the field. So whereas like basketball, it's so small that it's kind of distracting to see all those screens of people. But yeah, we're definitely losing a lot of porridge at those stadiums, and for those distributors who have stadiums in their markets, it's a real bummer. Hate to cycle that. But as far as viewing at home and consuming at home, I think we're going to see. I think we'll see an increase once the season gets more underway, and once it has a kind of a dominance over all the airways. Talking about the NFL in this case.
All right, I've kind of got a two-part question for both tiers here. With the JV announcement with Yuengling and Molson Coors, do you see more consolidation, mergers, announcements at the supplier level and also at the distributor level? Do you see the pace of consolidation increasing?
Yes, to both of those. I think the pace of consolidation has been pretty steady. And there's not as many face-to-face interactions, so that kind of has an effect. But I think once things loosen up, I think we'll see a lot more distributor consolidation and announcements. And I certainly know Reyes is on the prowl where they do business in adjacencies. And then I think we will see more supplier things like that. I honestly, I kind of thought that Molson Coors and Heineken would create a JV, very similar to the one that got announced today with Yuengling. Not a full merger, just a JV to kind of share sales reps and share chain resources and some brewing capacity for those brands that can be brewed in the United States. I think. And I just because Yuengling did it, I still don't rule out that they might be a Heineken deal in the future, or with several other of those top suppliers that, listen, there's a lot of capacity, unutilized capacity in the industry right now. And so whenever that happens, you're going to see more deals to try and fill that capacity.
Great. I think the last one I have right now is about NA beer. Obviously, we've heard about it growing and stuff. Has COVID set that back? Has that moved it forward? What's your thoughts on NA beer?
I don't know whether I can't really tell if COVID set it back or moved it forward. I'm surprised at how big it's gotten pretty quickly. And especially with the Heineken and Athletic and, Bud Zero, they've all done pretty well. They're not setting the world on fire or anything, but I'm surprised because I made a joke when Heineken 0.0 came out. I said, "Oh, they're attacking the huge O'Doul's occasion." I mean, it's like, really, that's the competitor that you're going after, Sharps and O'Doul's. But they almost created overnight a brand new category that does have some legs, and they've put up quite a bit of money behind it. So yeah, I see more craft brewers coming out, and just startups that do nothing but non-alc beer, like Athletic. And so it's an interesting little segment there.
You touched on it earlier, but with craft brewers being so reliant upon on-premise sales and taproom revenues, do you think the wave of closures is going to be over the next 3 to 6 months, or will they be able to make it through that?
I think for the most part, it really depends on how leveraged they are, right? How much debt they have. And so if they're well funded, I think that we won't see a huge fallout. Now, when I interviewed Sam Calagione back in March, and you can see it on our YouTube channel, just a little quick plug there. I said 40% are going to go under, and he was like, no, Harry. And it turns out he was right. It's more like between 10 and 20% aren't going to make it back. And so it's not as Armageddon or catastrophic as I initially thought it was going to be, mainly because we didn't know about the PPP loan back then, and we didn't know when on-premise was going to open up. And it depends on where you are. Like if you're in Chicago, you're screwed, right? Or New York. But if you're in other places that are more open, like Texas, bars and restaurants are open at 50% capacity, you can still make it work. And also if you have a good growler business. So yeah, I think we will see some closings, but for the most part, I think they'll pull through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Harry, I can't thank you enough for making the time. I know you had a busy morning. It's rare that you can do 2 associations in one day, but I guess that's where we are now with
well, I mean, it's so funny, Jacob. I've only been asked to 2 association meetings for the whole year, and then I get the emails, and they're both on the same day at the same time.
But Brad Bales and I will look to better coordinate our schedules.
Yeah, well, I was like, what are the chances of that? Like, I just couldn't believe it. But I'm really glad. Thanks for accommodating my schedule, and I'm really great to talk to you guys. I love talking to beer people. And may I make one more plug, if you will?
Please.
We are continuing on at this point in this day and planning on having our beer summit in mid-January 2021. And we're going to open registration later this week. Hopefully, God willing, we'll have some sort of vaccine by then, and it just may open up. We don't know. So the way we're going to do it is that you can sign up, pay the fee for the ticket, and if you don't feel comfortable coming at any time between now and then, you just say so. We'll give you your money back, and then we'll also likely have an option where, if we, you can view it online for a cheaper fee, and then also you can come. It's in San Diego on the beach. You can come and watch the sessions in your room on your TV or computer, and then just come to the receptions, which will be outside on the beach, with the breeze and you can socially distance. And so this is kind of the plan we're having. So it's very fluid at this time. We've got some great speakers already lined up, which I really was surprised that they would agree to do it. But just wanted to put that out there, and you'll see if you subscribe to Beer Business Daily, you'll see the link in the next few days. But anyway, it's January 17th to the 19th at the Del Coronado, and it was a tough decision whether to plug through, because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of expense, and we might lose a lot of money because you have to pay a certain amount up front. But hey, I think it's worth it, just in the off chance that I really would like to see beer people again. I'm getting tired of being cooped up in my little apartment. I love my dog, but I don't love him that much. That's the point. So, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
We appreciate it. Thanks, Harry, and look forward to catching up soon.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.